What if I told you that deep inside an abandoned mansion, there's a collection of puppets, each one so lifelike, you'd swear they could blink? Would you believe me if I said, they used to be alive? Before you answer, imagine this. You're a detective, called to investigate a place whispered about for decades. Locals say anyone who enters never comes back. And those who've dared to peek inside, they see faces in the shadows, faces that might be watching you right now. Tonight, you'll meet a man who thought he was strong enough to uncover the truth. But he didn't know the mansion had rules, strings you can't see, until it's too late. Stay with us, because this is no ordinary ghost story. By the end, you'll see why some doors should stay locked. And if you think you can walk away unscathed, well, so did he. Welcome to the Marionette House. Trust me, you'll want to hear this to the very end. Because the next time you hear a soft tug at your hand, it might not be your imagination. Let's begin. Our story begins with a seasoned detective, known for his grit and no-nonsense approach. He thought he'd seen it all, until one cold autumn morning, a call brought him to the outskirts of town, to a mansion abandoned for nearly a century. Rumors had swirled around it for years. They said that anyone who ventured into the mansion vanished, only to reappear as lifelike marionettes, forever trapped in the puppeteer's horrific display. But the detective didn't believe in ghosts. He was here for answers. As he stepped into the grand hall, he was struck by the silence, broken only by the faint clinking of marionette strings swaying in the still air. Lining the walls were wooden figures, marionettes so hauntingly realistic, it seemed they might breathe at any moment. And there, at the head of the room, sat a grand throne. With each step closer, the detective's heart pounded. He began to notice something unsettling about the figures. Their faces were filled with frozen fear, eyes glistening as though pleading for help. It felt as if they were trying to warn him. And then, he heard it. The whispers, soft but insistent, echoed through the hall. The detective shook it off as his nerves, but he couldn't deny the feeling that he was being watched. Determined to find answers, he searched deeper into the mansion and discovered a small, cluttered workshop hidden behind a wall panel. Inside, jars of thick oil, rusted tools, and puppet strings lay scattered. And then he found the files, documents and mementos of people who had vanished, each file marked with a name, a date, and a marionette replica. Horrified, he realized these weren't just puppets. They were people, victims trapped within these wooden shells, brought here by an unknown hand and stripped of their humanity. In a desperate attempt to break the spell, he grabbed the thickest string on the nearest puppet and cut it, hoping it might free the soul inside. Suddenly, the marionette went limp, and a faint, distant cry echoed from the walls, as though a soul had been released. But his act of rebellion didn't go unnoticed. The puppeteer, enraged by the detective's interference, appeared from the shadows. "You think you can undo my work? This isn't a game, detective. The only strings you'll be cutting are the ones that hold your freedom." In an instant, he felt something cold tugging at his limbs, a force pulling his arms and legs against his will. As though invisible strings had wrapped around him, the puppeteer was beginning to pull him under his control. Desperate to escape, he remembered the jars of oil. In a wild attempt, he coated himself with it, making his skin slick, hoping the strings would slip. It worked. The puppeteer's strings couldn't cling to his oiled arms, and he managed to break free, stumbling through the corridors, slick and dripping, the puppeteer's taunting voice echoing behind him. "You may slip away now, but you'll join them soon enough." The detective bolted for the grand hall, a spark of defiance in his eyes. There, he grabbed a lantern from the wall. If he couldn't save them all, He would at least destroy the puppeteer's twisted creations. With a deep breath, he lit the strings, hoping to sever the ties that bound the souls. As the flames danced along the strings, the puppet's screams filled the air, one by one becoming still as each soul was set free. In the chaos, the puppeteer's calm composure finally broke, his voice becoming desperate, pleading. "You'll ruin everything. You'll be trapped here forever." But just as the last marionette fell, an eerie silence filled the room. The detective's relief was short-lived, for as he looked down, he noticed something horrifying. His own hands were transforming, wooden and stiff. The puppeteer's curse had not broken, only transferred. The detective had freed the others. But now he would become the next puppeteer, cursed to stay in the mansion, forever bound to repeat the cycle. Now in that old mansion, if you listen closely, you might hear a new puppeteer's voice, cold and weary, calling out to those who wandered too close. And if you enter, beware. You may just find yourself part of his collection, a marionette in the marionette house. Now that you've heard the tale of the marionette house, I have just one question. Would you have stayed or run? These stories aren't just meant to entertain, they're warnings. And maybe, just maybe, they'll keep you from walking too close to the shadows. If this tale unsettled you, let us know. Hit like to show your support. Share it with someone who loves a good scare, and subscribe so you don't miss what's lurking around the corner. And in the comments below, tell me, have you ever felt like something was watching you? Your story could be the next one we uncover. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and whatever you do, don't let the strings find you.